Thank you very much. What a great turnout. Fantastic. I think we have something just over 80 here this evening, so it's really a wonderful turnout. I've been reflecting a bit on how things have changed since our time, and the language that's used today by the students would have been totally unknown to us. The drugs of our day were cigarettes and coffee, rock and roll and a few pints. In our day, Coke was a drink, grass was played on, a joint was the pot roast your mother cooked on a Sunday, smack was what you got if you were bold, and crack was what we had in the bar in Belfield. We got married first and then slept together. How quaint. A gay person was the life and soul of the party, and a stud was the button you put on a dress shirt. And going all the way was getting the 46A to the terminus. We came before the Dort and the Lewis and Ross O'Carroll Kelly. We went to Hops in Mount Pleasant and Wanderers, where we had live groups and drank minerals. But we trained and prepared for those evenings in McCluskey's and Kylie's and the Horseshoe House. So I suppose by the time we got to the Hops, we were hopping ourselves. A laptop was an exotic zone. A mobile phone was unheard of, and the internet was far in the future. Facebook and iPads were not the vocabulary that we were used to. And software was a smooch you had with your girlfriend. Hardware, well, now that was an entirely different thing. When we socialized, conversation was the currency of life. Have you noticed people don't talk anymore on the bus or the Dart or the Lewis or the pub or the restaurant or walking down the street? Everyone is communicating in silence, oblivious to the outside world. We had some wonderful lecturers: Des Halley, Piers Colbert, Paddy Lynch, who was chairman of Aer Lingus, economic history, and of course the great John Teeling, who introduced us to the word entrepreneurship and became one of the greatest entrepreneurs himself. And we're delighted and proud, John, that you're here with us this evening. We look forward to the 2 hours you're going to address us. We had a few uninteresting subjects like commercial law and statistics, and you might recall the people in the back row in Theodorel had a competition most of those days to see who would finish the simplex crossword first. Well, Pat was always in the van. On our first day in accountancy, Des Halley strode onto the stage like a colossus, and he said, "Look at the person to your right. One of you won't be here next year. There's a 50% failure rate in commerce." When my great pal, the late Niall Kern, was sitting at the end of a row, and when he looked to the right, there was a wall. And he turned to me and he said, "Jackie, that wall is going to be here next year, so I better get the finger out." I shared a flat with Niall, as you know. We were great buddies, and sadly he passed away suddenly in Australia at the age of 48. But Niall had a tendency to be a bit of a radical. And when we moved to Belfield, the new Belfield bar hadn't long been opened, and it was being run by the SRC, and the chairman of the bar was the president of the SRC. So Niall felt that this wasn't right, and he started talking around commerce about the son of a publican who was the right person to run this show, and of course that was me. So I thought no more of it, and one evening, heading back to Ranelagh on the back of his Yamaha, he pulled up at an off-licence in Ranelagh, and he got a naggin of brandy. I said, Jesus, Niall, what do you do with a naggin of brandy? I mean, Niall didn't drink spirits. He made up for it in other ways, but he said, I'm going to talk to the Commerce faculty first thing in the morning, and I need the courage. And I said, what are you going to say? He said, I'm going to propose you for chairman of the bar. And I said, that was a bit of a shock, but the next day Niall arrived down on stage before the first lecturer came, spoke at length. The lecturer had to wait about all the reasons why the SRC should not, in any circumstances, be allowed to run anything that was involved with money, and that I, Jackie Gleeson, would be the chairman of the bar. Well, that evening the AGM took place, and as I was proposed, pandemonium broke out, and the AGM was cancelled in disarray. And the next day I was called into the office of the president of the SRC, a Belvederian, by the name of Adrian Hardyman. And he greeted me with, Mr. Gleeson, have you been doing this for dilettante purposes? Well, I came from Tipperary. And words like that hadn't just reached us yet. But I pretended I knew what he was talking about. He said it was an absolute outrage to be insulted like that. And we had a conversation, and I advised him that I had the experience for this bar, and you might be looking to get the experience for another bar. So I said, as president of the SRC, I don't think it would be great if you lost this vote, and you were likely to lose this vote. So we agreed a compromise, and I became chairman of the bar without being elected by popular vote, and he became the vice chairman. On one condition, that I was allowed 4 nominees onto the committee. Bill Lean was the guru in the college who oversaw all these financial matters. And I nominated Paul Fallon as treasurer. And Henry Stewart, you might remember Henry, he disappeared, and we never heard from him again, but Henry was the ONSEC. And David Fitzgerald from the C&E was on the committee as well, and then we got somebody from, I think, rugby and somebody from soccer. Yeah, so the pint in the bar was 16p, so we did a great night out for £1. Like, you got 6 pints for £1. During the course of the year, we became very unpopular when we looked at the finances and realised we had to put an extra penny on the pint. And the placards were out across the campus for some time. That's my recollection of Niall. He was really a terrific guy. Do you remember Theatre Rel at lunchtime some Fridays when BComm and the imbeciles entertained us to crack and rhyme and all the rest? And that BComm, of course, went on to become the great Dermot Morgan, who again tragically passed away far too early. Pierce Farrell became auditor of the C&E. Una Kilgariff became the social secretary. And on the C&E committee was a trainee nun called Gemma McInerney, who dispensed with the veil shortly after she met our lot. Well, Gemma later married, but passed away too soon, leaving a 3-year-old daughter. That daughter contacted us to see if we could tell or what her mother was like in those years. And we invited her here tonight. So can I introduce you to Gráinne McNamara. We just want to give you some flowers.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's a pleasure. And Gráinne would like to talk to you all later on to see what you remember about her mum. If I put a veil on her, she'd look very like her, wouldn't she? Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
During our final year, those who had aspirations for accountancy were called into the major accountancy firms and the not so major accountancy firms. And one of our classmates, who was a bit of a rugby head, got an interview in Stokes Kennedy Crowley, and he was interviewed by Alex Bain. Now this guy had a fairly good academic record. And Alex asked him, well, what was he like outside of academics? And he said, well, I've been very good at rugby. I played with Blackrock College, UCD, Leinster, got a final trial, and I'm about to be picked for Ireland. And Alex said, well, Jay, that's very good, but we need somebody who can excel outside of we can excel in office hours. And James, he said, that's all right, Mr. Spain. Most of my rugby will be done inside office hours. Before I conclude, huddle cubes is a new expression to me. Huddle cubes cost €60,000 in the new Quinn extension. And they've asked us if we would consider making some contribution down the line to help to locate one of these huddle cubes with the BComm class of 1973 attached to it. And their goal is to raise $60,000 over 4 years. And they've asked if the class of 73 can sponsor a cube, which will be called the Learning Space. Individual donations of $250 in 1 year are potentially worth plus 45% to the school with tax relief. Nicola Myrna, the team leader of this, and also of the support of students in need, is the person who looks after this. So it's something we might give consideration to. Our thanks are due to the Alumni Office for helping us to organise this event, and particular to Elaine Ahern and her team. And I would now like to call on one of my fellow organisers to come up here and present Elaine with a token of our appreciation. Before we finish, can we bow our heads in silent prayer and remember our classmates who have passed on? Niall Kern, Gabby Gogarty, Seamus McQuaid, Hugh Cooney, Gemma McInerney, Conor Cummins, Tom Hyland, Steve McKenzie, Des Carville, and Annika Ruska, who became Annika Carr. May they rest in peace. Thank you all.